Hello. Good morning. My name is Tyler Nance, and this is my beautiful, wonderful wife, Savannah. Yeah. We've been married for 2 months, and she's been attending this church for a little over a year, and I've been attending FBC with my family for about 16 years. But if I'm honest, I've only been here mentally for a fraction of that time. So I know Stones of Remembrance, as Micah just said, is supposed to be a reflection of God's grace and faithfulness through the past year. And in order to get the full picture of the culmination of what 2023 was for me, we need to take it back a few more years. I grew up in a Christian home. I did Awana. I was involved in the church through high school. But after high school, I joined the blue-collar workforce. I got involved in worldly things, including and not limited to the party scene. I indulged in drunkenness, sexual immorality, and what the world had to offer. I had no remorse, but in hindsight, I was left unfulfilled. I hit rock bottom a few times, but never completely back to God. Never turned completely back to God. Looking back, even though I was not on the right path, the Lord was protecting me and redirecting me. He provided me with parents who loved and prayed for me constantly, and they were there for me, loving me unconditionally and praying for me even in my most rebellious and sinful times. That is something I am so grateful for, and such a blessing from God. During this time, I still went to church when convenient, out of respect for my parents, but anyone who saw me there knew I was not there. I would be hungover, fighting and losing the battle to sleep in the pew, and first to leave and just not attentive. That lasted about 8 years from high school till after 8 years out of high school. But as God has his way of humbling and changing people, he did that to me. In my case, it was an injury in the beginning of 2021 that took me out of all my activities for 6 months. God used this injury to slow me down. During this time, I hit a low point, and I realized I had to change my lifestyle. And with guidance from my parents, reading Proverbs daily, and jumping on the Bible bus, there was, thank you, Steve Schwetz. There was a slow but definite change. Then I was placed in Fresno for work in late 2021. This was a new trial. It was a difficult work environment, and I was pretty much all by myself up there. But God has some surprises for me. During this time, I ended up going to a church that Micah had directed me to. It was very similar to FBC, which I really liked, and a few things happened there which I knew God had orchestrated for me. In the first few weeks I was at that church, I ran into a family that I had worked with at Johnny and Friends camp many years prior, which was a pretty good hint that I was in the right place. Then one Sunday morning, there was a visiting preacher, a blunt and fiery one. His name was Paul Washer. Yeah. Yep. And he really spoke to me and my struggles and the wrongs of a worldly lifestyle. That evening, he did a Q&A, which I was able to attend. And through that Q&A, God really spoke to my heart. And I realized that even though I had had growth and change, I wasn't where I needed to be. And that evening, I privately rededicated my life to Christ and made a conscious decision to step away from my sinful ways. Because I had realized sin had kept me distant from God. I made a point to read my Bible every day and regularly attend church. But I was still dealing with my singleness and loneliness. I read Single, Dating, Engaged, and Married by Ben Stewart. Well, I only read the single portion and was quite convicted. And I realized I just needed to focus on that for the moment, being single. Because I needed to be secure in my solitude and get right with God before even thinking about pursuing a woman. So then that work assignment changed, and I came home from Fresno in mid-2022. I was now back at FBC, and this time fully present and still getting refined by God. In September 2022, at a celebration of life for a mutual friend, I reconnected with my high school crush. And while both of us were just looking to be Christian friends, God had other plans. She couldn't resist the person God had shaped me to be. Because Savannah knew me in high school and had run into me during my wild phase. So I was quite caught off guard when she expressed feelings for me, because to say the least, the feelings were never mutual before. By the end of 2022, we were dating, and like any good Christian relationship, we were engaged after 9 months and married just a year after dating. So, in retrospect, 2023 was a year of answered prayers, many answered prayers. My prayers, Savannah's prayers, my parents' prayers, her parents' prayers, and many, many prayer warriors' prayers. Lots of prayers. God's faithfulness has shown through in many ways, such as loving, patient, faithful parents, faithful timing and placement of God's plan and purpose for our lives now together, and seeing God demonstrate his endless grace and blessing me with a wonderful life after so much wandering down rough and worldly roads. I'd like to leave you with 3 verses that have stuck to me and stuck out to me and shaped me over the past few years. Psalm 103:8. The Lord is merciful and gracious, slow to anger and abounding in steadfast love. Lamentations 3:22-23. The steadfast love of the Lord never ceases. His mercies never come to an end. They are new every morning. Great is your faithfulness. Romans 12:2. Do not be conformed to this world, but be transformed by the renewing of your mind, that by testing you may discern what is the will of God, what is good, acceptable, and perfect. May God bless all of you in 2024. Thank you.